So in this tutorial we will see about how to create the database, how to create the tables, how to use the SQL queries to fetch the values from the table. So first we will go for creating the database inventory. We will use the command create database. So we will go to the SQL server. We will use the SQL scripts to run the SQL. Okay, so we will write the command here, or create database inventory. So we will select it and we will run. Okay, so commands completed successfully. So we will use this database. Now we will go for creating the table customer. So in the customer table we are having CID and varchar 5. We have taken CID as the primary key, CNAME nvarchar 20 and address nvarchar 20. So this is all about the customer table. So we will use this customer table here. So we will run this query. So our table customer is created in the inventory database. So we will now go for creating one more table, that is called as the product table. So in this we are having PID and varchar as the primary key, pname nvarchar 20 we have taken, and price int I have taken. So again the product table is created. We will refresh the database to see that our tables are created successfully. Now we will go for creating the sales table. So in the sales table we will have CID as the foreign key. CID here we have taken it as the primary key. Product ID we have taken it as a primary key in the product table. Now in the purchase table we will make CID as a foreign key. So we have written the code as, here we are taking one more ID, that is the, we can say, the transaction ID or the sales ID. We have given the constant as unique constant for the sales ID. Customer ID, so here we are referring to the parent table customer. Okay, so here the CID, it is now becoming a foreign key. So we are declaring your customer ID with the data type nvarchar 5. Foreign key references customer, so it is referring to the customer table. Similarly, we are also taking the PID from the product table, PID nvarchar 5. That is also the foreign key which is referring to the product table. And then we are having the quantity as int. So in the sales table we are having three things: the customer ID which is referring to the parent table customer, similarly the product ID which is referring to the parent table product. So this have now become your foreign keys. And one more we have taken, that is the sales ID, to refer to the transaction done by each and every customer. We are also having pdate, that is the date on which the customer has purchased, and also the quantity. So we will create this table here. So now we will run this query. So command created successfully, executed successfully. So now you can refresh the database and see all the tables are created. So we have this inventory database, we are having these tables: customer table, product table, purchase table. So now we'll go for inserting some records here. So we are inserting the records into the customer table. Insert into customer values, customer ID, name and the country. So 4-5 records we have taken. So we'll try to execute these commands here. So we have inserted the 5 records into the customer table. We can see it. By executing these commands. Okay, so all the records are inserted into the customer table. Now we will go for inserting record into the product table. One more record we have taken, that is customer ID 6, also we will insert that. So now we will insert some record into the product table. So we are having the product ID, the product name and the price of the product. So we are having some 9 records here. So all the records are inserted properly, we can see from the commands. Okay, so all the products are inserted. Now we will go for inserting into the sales table. So the structure of the sales table is, here we have inserted one sales ID, customer ID, product ID, which is a foreign key referring to it. Foreign key means whatever the values we have inserted here, that same values can come in the purchase table. Okay, we cannot insert any other records other than the primary key which are defined here. So only the records which are defined here from C001 to C006. So if you try to insert C001, we cannot insert the records here into the purchase table. So there is a restriction when we are inserting the records into the foreign key table, that is the purchase table, which is the foreign keys which are referring to the parent, that is the primary keys. Only those records which are in the primary keys, that only can be inserted into the foreign keys. New records cannot be inserted. So we have to insert the sales ID here. So we will make some changes here. Enter into purchase. We have to enter the sales ID also. So this is the sales ID S001, S002. This is the customer ID which is referring to the parent table, that is the customer, and this is the product ID which is referring to the product table, and this is the date on which the customer have purchased the product, and this is the quantity that they have purchased. So we are having total 6 transactions here. So we will try to execute here. So in the foreign key table, we cannot insert records which are not there in the primary key table. Okay, so we will try to insert the records into the transaction table, purchase table. Okay, so you can see this many records are inserted. We can select the values here. So it is showing the purchase table is showing the details of the customer who have done the purchase of the products, product, date, quantity. So now if you want to write this query, find the name of the customer, find the customer name and the product name purchased by the customer. So we have to take all the 3 tables, the customer table, the product table and the purchase table. Customer table contains information about the customer only, product table contains information about the product, and the third table, that is the purchase table, it contains the transaction details, that which customer has purchased which product. So if you want to retrieve the name of the customer who have purchased the product, so we will write the query as Okay, so our query is supposed to find the name of the customer. Suppose this is our query to find the name of customer who have purchased the product. Okay, so it is like the inner join. It will contain the records which are fetched from both the tables. Okay, this transaction table contains the records which are there in the parent table customer as well as in the parent table product. So those customer who have purchased the product, their details only we will show here. So the syntax is we will have to show the customer name and the product name, suppose. So we will write here select. We will rename the customer table with C. Okay, so we are doing the renaming here. Customer table we will rename with C, product table we will rename with P, and the purchase table we will rename with PR. Okay, so these are the three different rename we are doing for the purchase table. So if you are referring to the customer name, we will write here C.CName, comma P.PName. So name of the customer and the name of the product the customer has purchased. Suppose, and also the quantity that he has purchased. So in the purchase table we have seen the quantity which is purchased. So the create table contains one field which is called as quantity. So we can also use that quantity here, pr.quantity. Okay, so C stands for the customer table, P stands for the product table. So we are selecting the customer name, the product name, and the quantity the customer has purchased from customer C, comma product P, comma purchase PR. So we have to now joining this table where C.CID equals to, okay. So CID here, it refers to the customer table, CID is there. So in the purchase table, we have written here customer, okay. So that is important here. We have written here customer ID, not CID here. So we will have to use that. C.CID is equals to PR.CID. So CID is common here. C.CID is equals to PR.customer ID we have to write here. And PR.product ID we have kept it as same. In the purchase table we have kept it as PID, as well as in the product table we have kept it as PID. So in this way we can retrieve the name of the customer who have purchased the product. So we have taken this three table, customer, product table, and the purchase table we have renamed. So we are joining on the basis of the primary key and the foreign key. So in the customer table we have renamed it as customer ID. In the purchase table we have named it as customer ID. So we have to refer to the data type C.CID is equals to PR.customer.id, PR.customer ID, and PR.PID is equals to P.PID. So when we run this query, so you can see here the result here, the name of the customer who have purchased the product. Okay, it contains only those names who have purchased the products. Customer name, the product that he has purchased, and the quantity that he has purchased. Now suppose if you want to show the amount also, okay, we are having the price in the product table and we are also having the quantity. So we can issue this same command. So we have successfully run this query to find the name of the customer who have purchased the product, okay, who have purchased the product, PRODUCT. Now if you want to find the total sales, find the total purchase, or find the total amount purchase by each customer. So we will use the same query, just we have to find the total amount. Already we are having the quantity and the price, so we will use that. So we will use the same query here, just we will make certain changes here. So now what we have to do, we have to find the price also. We are already selecting P.PName. Here we will go for multiplying PR.price into PR.quantity. So this will give the total purchase which are done by that customer. So you can show it in different columns also, pr.price comma pr.price into pr.quantity as. We can rename it, whether it is supporting in SQL Server, we will see it here. So this thing we will remove here. In Oracle it is working, in SQL Server we will see some other syntax. Just we will add new column by multiplying pr.price into pr.quantity. We will run this query. So what we have done here, our product table is containing the price, so we have to write here P. So again, if we want to find the total amount purchased by each customer, we are selecting the customer name, the product name. The price was in the product table, so we have to use here P. We were using PR. So we can find the total amount which is purchased by each customer by using p.price into pr.quantity, because quantity is contained in the third table, that is the sales table, that is called as purchase table. We are renamed it as PR. Whereas price is in the product table, we have to use here p.price. That was the mistake that we are doing. So now we will see it here. Okay, so this p.price into pr.quantity we have renamed it as total sales. So you can see the total sales for each customer. So customer 1 has purchased smartwatches, price was 5,000 and the total sales was 50,000. Here we can also go for showing the quantity. So you can see here the customer 1 has purchased this smartwatch 10 quantity, price was 5,000, the total amount which can be given by the customer is 50,000. So in this way we can go for finding the total amount which is purchased by the each customer. Now suppose if you want to go for finding the total purchase which is done by each customer for each product, suppose if you want to find according to the product ID, okay, find the total sales of each product, how much that particular product has been sold or not. So we can go for summing the price according to the customer. So this is comes under the aggregate function where we are finding the total price. So we can go for saying like one customer has purchased so many times. So we can see here Mahesh. So same customer has purchased here 3 times. So if you want to find the total sale done by each customer Mahesh, we will have to use the aggregate function. So in the aggregate function we will sum this price. So we have to use the group by function. Okay. So what we are doing here, we are doing the total summation of price by using sum p.price. We will do the summation of the price according to the customer ID. So whenever we are using the aggregate function, we have to use certain attributes like what we are summing up. We are summing up according to the customer ID. So we will write here c.cid sum.p.price from customer C, product P, purchase PR. So we are retrieving it from the 3 tables where we are using the join conditions, joining both the tables, and we are grouping according to the customer ID. So in this way we can find the total sales which is done by each customer, we can find the total purchase done by each customer. So our query is to find the total purchase done by each customer. So our syntax is we are using the aggregate function sum. We are summing up total p dot. If you want to find the total purchase, we have to multiply here p dot price into pr dot quantity. Okay. that is the total purchase we can see here. Or if you want to, okay, just we will go for according to the customer ID only. So we are summing up the price and the quantity for each product the customer has purchased from customer C, product P, purchase PR, where C.CID equals to PR.customer ID, PR.PID is equals to P dot, that is the purchase PID is equals to the product PID, grouping by customer ID. So we will run this query. So when we run this query, so we can see the total amount which is done by the customer 1 is 6,50,000, something around that. Similarly, the second customer total amount which is purchased by the second customer. Similarly, the third customer purchase. Similarly, we can go for the customer 5 who has the total purchase amount. So we can show the total purchase amount done by each customer by using the aggregate function sum. So we are summing up the price and the quantity according to the customer. So we are using the here group by CID, group by function we are using. So aggregate function are sum, min, max, average and count. So these are the aggregate functions. So suppose if you want to find the total number of customers, we can go right here, find the total number of customers. We can use aggregate function count. So this will show the total number of customer. Suppose if we want to find the maximum price of the product, we can select so you can see the maximum price is 50,000. We can go for finding the minimum price. We can go for finding the average price by using AVG. So these are called the aggregate function, AVG, max, min, count, sum. So these are called the aggregate functions. So this is all about how to join the tables, how to fire the queries, how to retrieve the values according to the customer. So here we are going for joining the three tables, customer, product table and the purchase table. So if you have any query, you can write in the chat box. So thank you all of you for watching.